Do you remember who's on Team Canada?
From the CN Power?
Yeah.
I think it says right there.
Haha,
So we got
sure does.
Dusty, Motorhead Molly,
Nasher, who's not playing
Dinah
today.
Hercha, Nasher.
Not playing.
All right, we're back online. The second half of this bout is about ready to get started. Score is CN Power 132 over the Flatliners 63.
We're just talking about Team Canada, which is preparing for the World Cup in Dallas this December. And on the track now, we have a couple of those players. It's Dinah Hercha with the star for CN Power, trying to make her way through that pack, and she does.
She makes it through, but she is not the lead jammer. Number 44 for Bleeding Heartlands. Knuckle Sammy got lead jammer, got recycled, but called it off before Dinah could do any damage for Toronto. Bipolar Curves jamming for Bleeding Heartland on this one.
And that's Ballerina once again with the star for CN Power. Both jammers slow going, trying to use those hips to wiggle their way through.
Pile up at the back of the pack, stops Bipolar.
Oh, and Ballerina just jumps over that outside line, and she is lead.
And Mal's Dolls with a big swing and a miss there. Bipolar has completed her initial pass. She's about a half a track back.
And Ballerina calls it before they can score any points.
Yep, so Toronto well represented on Team Canada. Looking at the list there, a few skaters that are playing with them this year. Dusty, Motorhead Molly, Dinah Hercha, Nasher the Smasher, and Rainbow Fight.
Who is not skating today because of an injury.
Also Ballerina, Team Canada.
Mm-hmm. Dinah once again with the star. She is lead jammer. Rennie Rumble at the back of the pack, holding back Bleeding Heartland.
That was a really good check to Speedium rear, stopped her.
Dinah deciding not to scoop up that 5th point. She calls it.
So we took a look at the penalty board at the half. Things kind of evened out in the second half of the first period. Toronto had picked up 20 trips to the box in the first one. Bleeding Heartland was 17.
No clear leaders there yet. A few people sitting with 3 and 4 on each side. We'll see how the second half plays out. Jamming for CN Power is Ballerina.
Knuckle Sammy's the jammer for Bleeding Heartland. She gets knocked out of bounds and recycled early.
Ballerina on her own at the front against 4 blockers. She can't quite make it through.
Knuckle Sammy is through, but no pass, no penalty means she's not the lead jammer.
And Ballerina is lead. She calls it. Looks like there is a back block penalty being called. I'm not sure which skater is going to the penalty box.
Oh, it is Knuckle Sammy. That's bad news for Bleeding Heartland. CN Power starting off in a power jam. Bleeding Heartland only has 2 blockers on the track.
This is setting up to be a game changer here. And there it is, Motorhead Molly just skipping her way through past those 2 blockers. CN Power just keeping this pack held right here at the bench.
Yeah, Special Sass and Hurricane, the lone blockers for Bleeding Heartlands.
Motorhead Molly hit out, but she just skips around. CN Power making sure that those 2 blockers can't move too far back. Motorhead Molly coming for a 3rd pass, and we have barely come across a quarter of this track.
Hurricane called for an out of play. More penalty trouble for Bleeding Heartland.
Just one blocker to beat for Motorhead Molly, and she does it.
That's an expensive blocker. Just passing her is 5 points, and all those ghost points from the penalty box. Special Sass with a good hit, knocks down Motorhead Molly, slows her down by herself, but Molly squeezes through on the inside turn. That is another Grand Slam for Toronto.
Once again, Motorhead Molly coming around.
Knuckle Sammy's out of the box for Bleeding Heartland. Just completes her initial pass. Motorhead Molly calls off the jam, but not before Knuckle Sammy can pick up 2 points for Bleeding Heartland.
If you want to join us on Twitter, all it takes is going to TO Roller Derby to see all the updates. Hashtag Toque #2 QCC. Tell us what you thought of that last jam, or any jam. Or the fact that Dusty is jamming for CN Power. Whatever you want to talk about.
Dusty
Maybe.
Out in front, she's the lead jammer. What do you think is harder to read on a jersey? Gold on purple or pink on white?
I don't know. I'm not loving the orange on burgundy either. But, we're not making uniforms here. We're trying to call the action, and Bleeding Heartland is out of the pack.
Dusty with a good move on the outside. That's another 4 points before she calls off the jam.
Hey, maybe that's what people could use the hashtag for. Let's talk about jersey numbers.
There's a lot to talk about.
There's
in roller derby.
so much. We could debate about penalties, whether a minute is too long. We're interested in having a shorter penalty time.
We're still playing with the previous rule set where penalties are 1 minute. It's going to be changing soon, though.
Yep. Dinah Hercha blocking her way through that pack, holding solid. She is lead jammer.
Bipolar gets bounced back to the outside, and she's recycled.
Stuck behind Jubilee and Rennie Rumble.
Malls Dolls makes her way to the penalty box for Bleeding Heartlands.
Dinah Hercha leaving that pack in her wake.
She lapped the other jammer.
Coming in for another natural Grand Slam, and she does it.
Great defense being played right now by Toronto. Bipolar Curves just not able to find a gap through. Dinah laps her again. That's another natural Grand Slam.
Bleeding Heartland playing a little desperate block. Just doing everything they can to try to make some room. Looks like we've got a panty pass here. Number 51 is now the jammer for Bleeding Heartland. She's going to try to see if she can do what previous jammer couldn't.
Yeah, that's Bruzy Ricardo.
And she's stuck behind Jubilee. Pantyhoser coming in for one more hit. It was successful.
Clean, no penalty called. Bruzy Ricardo being cycled all the way back by Santa Muerte. Still unable to complete that initial pass.
Definitely taking this to 2 minutes. Another natural Grand Slam for Dinah Hercha. And that's time. Another 5 points picked up. CM Power racing to that jammer line to do it all over again. They earned 208 points overall in this game. Flatliners have barely budged. They're still at 65. They started this half at 63. So this is already 10 minutes in, a really tough half for Bleeding Heartland.
Unsurprisingly, Bleeding Heartland's got to call a timeout and to settle stuff down after a jam like that.
Totally.
Gives us an opportunity to cover some more sponsors.
Absolutely.
Help bring this Quad City Chaos tournament directly into your home. Sponsors like Neon Skates. I think I have a really long blurb here, but like, you're at home, you're watching on your computer, just go to their website, skateneon.ca. Owned and operated by Montreal Roller Derby's own Georgia W. Tush, Neon Skates will try their darndest to make sure you are a satisfied customer. 2 colorful locations, one in Ottawa, one in Montreal. Check them out again at skateneon.com.
And speaking of skate shots, Rumbling Rage Derby Shop is a Canadian roller derby owned company based in Barrie, Ontario. RumblingRage.com. And the owner-proprietor there is Rennie Rumble, who is on Team Canada and CN Power. You've seen her skate today. And we're back on the track. Number 905, Ballerina, also on Team Canada with the star for CN Power.
Jamming against number 44, Knuckle Sammy.
Oh, and Ballerina making it look easy. She just tiptoes through that inside line. Knuckle Sammy stuck. And she does weasel her way through.
She's been pulling double duty wearing the Jam Star.
Yes,
every
she
other
has.
jam.
Ballerina clears the pack, picks up her 4 points, and calls it. Bleeding Heartland cleverly trying to take that first line.
Speedium rear, rookie jammer from Bleeding Heartlands, wearing the star.
Yep, Cookie Dough with the star for CN Power. She's stuck behind some tough blocking opponents there. Both jammers having trouble getting through. It seems that CN Power's difference is their defense.
Yeah, the jammers from Bleeding Heartland have been recycled again and again. They
Yep.
haven't been really able to get any speed going. And it's got to get frustrating just having to start and stop, backing up. Again, Speedium rear backed up on the inside, trying to avoid that cut.
That said, Cookie Dough is up there on her own against some pretty heavy hitters. She's just hoping and praying to push them forward. Almost at a dead stop.
Speedium rear knocked down again by Rennie Rumble. Recycled again all the way back to turn number 2.
Cookie Dough coming around for another score pass.
Speedium rear again knocked out by Rennie Rumble in turn number 2.
Once again stuck at the front, but Santa Muerta comes in and tries to do a little rescue.
Pack gets too spread out.
Viewers at home saw the shock and awe of that last penalty being called. Trying to define where that pack is. It's quite spread out here.
Speedium rear has made it to turn number 3. It's still being stopped by the CN Power blockers.
Rennie Rumble just sitting on her lap. It's brutal. Once you think you're free, then all of a sudden you've got another strong blocker knocking you down.
Yeah, Santa Muerta just knocked her down inside turn number 3 and backed her up again.
Cookie Dough for another pass. And that was time. CN Power now with 232 points against the Flatliners, who are flatlining at 65.
CN Power blockers have to be applauded for that effort. Bleeding Heartland jammer, I don't think completed 2 laps that whole jam.
No.
Shanda Rude trying to turn things around for her team, wearing the star for Bleeding Heartland.
And Motorhead Molly, lead jammer for CN Power, not making that easy. She's coming around for another point pass here. Sorry, her first one for this. Oh, and we've got a track cut. Bleeding Heartland, jammer sitting in the penalty box. This is going to be a power jam for Motorhead Molly. And we've got plenty of skaters sitting in that Sugar Bomb penalty box. Only 2 out there for Bleeding Heartland, 3 now.
Motorhead absorbs the hits, keeps going. The pack is parked in turn number 3.
If you were watching for the first game, it looks like CN Power. Oh, Motorhead Molly just on her toe stops on that inside line. No need for an apex jump. You might as well just tiptoe through. What I was saying is if you were watching this first game today with Montreal and Ohio, Montreal was doing a very similar strategy that CN Power is playing today. It'd be really interesting to see that matchup later today.
Another grand slam for Motorhead Molly.
And Bleeding Heartland's jammer is out of the penalty box.
Through her initial pass.
Still her initial pass, but she was untouched. Motorhead Molly picks up a few more points, calls it off.
CN Power closing in on a 200-point lead now.
15 minutes left in this half. Dinah Hertscha lining up with the star for CN Power. And that's Knuckle Sammy jamming for Bleeding Heartland.
Bleeding Heartland has only picked up 2 points in this half.
As we were saying earlier, that is really thanks to this remarkable blocking team on CN Power. And of course, having a blocker there with the jammer star doesn't hurt. That's Dinah Hertscha coming around for 5 more points.
Rennie Rumble sent to the box for her 5th time for an out of play. 4 of her 5 penalties have been out of play majors.
It's hard to give that point up. She's feeling it too.
Santa Muerte also sent to the penalty box at the end of the jam. Legal procedure? Didn't see the play.
She has to report back to the pack there. She is on deck.
Ooh, Eddie Muncher with a good hit. And then takes one from Candy Crossbones.
Ballerina stuck at the back of the pack. Eddie Muncher up against Candy Crossbones. She has to let her go. Still Ballerina zigs and zags, gets her way through. Eddie Muncher is already hitting the pack again for points. Santa Muerta bringing her back to the back. 0 points on that pass.
Santa Muerta's got to stay out there. There's still no room for her in the penalty box. She's got 1 to serve.
Didn't stop her from being effective in that pack while she's there.
Knuckle Sammy jamming again for Bleeding Heartlands.
And in the white and pink, that's Dusty, number 2, jamming for CN Power. Up against a heavy wall. Bleeding Heartland trying to recycle her back, but she does get lead jammer despite their best effort.
It looks like Santa Muerte picked up another penalty. She's going to be doing double time in the box this time around.
That's a bitter pill. And the jam is called. CN Power going to play short this entire jam.
Bruzy Ricardo wearing the star for Bleeding Heartlands.
And that's Motorhead Molly with the pink star for CN Power.
Bruzy's jammed once already for Bleeding Heartland, but that was on a star pass in the first period.
Yeah, we haven't seen her start off on the line yet. Oh, she's isolated by both Dinah Hercha and Panny Hoser. Motorhead Molly coming around for her point-scoring pass. Oh, and Dinah falls over the jammer. Another pile-up.
Bruzy Ricardo called for the low block on that collision with Dinah Hercha. It is a power jam for CN Power.
Gives Motorhead Molly a lot more time to pick up some points. Bleeding Heartland not making it easy for her.
On the power jam now, the pack is parked, turn number 3. And that's another grand slam for Motorhead Molly.
Bleeding Heartland now with 4 blockers on the track. See if they can isolate Motorhead Molly. Stop that bleeding once again. Candy Crossbones and Panty Hoser trying to give her some help.
Bleeding Heartland's jammer standing in the box.
Nice. Panty Hoser stopping that block. Oh, and just barely.
Star pass happened. Dinah Hercha's wearing the jam star just in time as Motorhead Molly sent to the penalty box.
We now sit with CN Power at 293. Flatliners still at 65 points. 9.5 minutes left in this game. And that's Ballerina with the star for CN Power.
Skating against Bipolar Curves for Bleeding Heartlands. Oh no, Bleeding Heartlands jammer, Bipolar Curves called on a track cut. It is another power jam for CN Power.
Proven to be a much tougher game for Bleeding Heartland than they may be expected. If you're coming halfway in, you can rewind and back up and watch from the start. You can pause to get a beverage, and recordings are always uploaded 30 minutes after the bout. So if you need to get caught up here, you can actually see early in this game when this was super tight. Bleeding Heartland doing some great defense here, just barely letting Ballerina out.
She slides into the back of the pack. CN Power looking to stretch out the pack to make some room. Ballerina gets checked to the inside and has to back up to avoid the track cut.
Well, CN Power is there to wall it up, make sure that they can't recycle too far back. Ballerina keeping her toe stops in. And Bleeding Heartland's jammer is out of the pack. CN Power saw it coming. And they're once again playing defense and offense.
Bipolar Curves again checked out of bounds and recycled to the back.
Meanwhile, Ballerina picked up another 5 points. Her bench is just telling her to lackadaisy, keep going.
Knuckle Sammy jamming again for Bleeding Heartlands.
And that's Cookie Dough with the star for CN Power. Looks like we've got 5 on 5. If I got my head count right. Nope, we're short a blocker from Bleeding Heartland. And CN Power is your lead jammer.
Penalties have been the downfall of Bleeding Heartlands.
And jammer penalties at that. It's one thing to sit in the box. It's another thing altogether to have your point scorer sitting in the box for a full minute.
Just watching this second period, even the power jams that they've given up haven't been just the jammer. They've emptied out their blockers as well. But again, this is going to be a learning experience for Bleeding Heartland, playing with almost a completely different roster than what they've had in past years.
Absolutely. And CN Power is a different team than what they've seen before. They came out of Division I championships really being the darlings of that tournament, coming out of nowhere and surprising a lot of folks. So it's like they're keeping that steam alive.
Speedium rear called for a track cut. It is again a power jam for CN Power.
Once again, we see that fishing strategy there.
Hurricane arguing with the referee, trying to get the track cut called. Referee saying no pass, no penalty. She wasn't in a position to acquire the track cut.
Right.
A little bit out of bounds, a little bit on her knees.
Once again, another 5 points scored on that outside line. Bleeding Heartland all out on the track now.
After a little bit of give and take at the start of this bout, we're seeing CN Power really impose their will on Bleeding Heartland. More penalty trouble for Bleeding Heartlands. Number 38, Special Sass, sent to the box for a clockwise block.
And Bleeding Heartland completely distracted. Meanwhile, Ballerina coming around for another 5 points. And CN Power just letting her do it. They're just defensively trying to block more points from happening against them. Playing that defense.
Speedium rear stretches out the pack. Lady Gaggio's got to let her go to complete the initial pass.
And Bala picks up another 5. There is a timeout. Bleeding Heartland using one of their timeouts here.
Speedium rear was able to pick up a couple of points. Small victory.
That makes it 4 points now that have been scored by the Flatliners in this half. Just 3.5 minutes left in the game. CN Power with 345 points.
The Flatliners have been shut out for the last 15 minutes at least, so a little bit encouraging to finally change that scoreboard for their favor. And there's a timeout being called.
Who's the sponsor of our timeouts, Scott?
We totally have a timeout sponsor.
We do. I believe it's Jackson Skates. Tell me more about Jackson.
Jackson Roller is a Canadian company committed to engaging elite skaters in product development to ensure its boots deliver world-class performance. Jackson Elite and competitor boots feature the Pilot Falcon extruded aluminum plates, Bionic Swiss bearings, and your choice of Atom, Juke, G-Rod, or DNA wheels. You can check them out online at jacksonroller.com.
I think I'll have to do that. Thank you, Scott.
You can open up more than one window in almost every web browser now. Just Control-T, you open up a new tab.
It's true. It's true. You could actually pull up all of our sponsors and read along with us.
And talk to us about them. What do you think of our
Yeah,
sponsors?
absolutely. I think that hashtag talk number 2 QCC is underutilized for this bout. I don't know if everybody's out to brunch or what, but we want to hear from you. You can follow Toronto Roller Derby at TO Roller Derby on Twitter. And of course, Toronto Roller Derby also has a page on Facebook. They also have a website, if you can believe it, torontorollerderby.com. Pretty tough to ignore or forget. And we're back.
Timeout is over. Number 727, Eddie Muncher, is going to be jamming against Dusty on this next jam.
In case you were wondering, that timeout break was brought to you by Bleeding Heartland. They were just questioning whether or not there was a track cut on CN Power's jammer, but in fact, the red blocker that did hit her out did step out of bounds, so it was a no pass, no penalty.
Both jammers have completed their initial pass. Dusty is the lead jammer, looking to score some points right now. Pat gets a little bit stressed out. She picks up 4 points, calling off the jam. I don't think Bleeding Heartland picks up 2 more points. Working hard to get 2 before that whistle goes. I'm going to take a quick moment to shout out to one of our sponsors, Monster Muffin, Canadian-made alter ego athletic clothing, Derby owned and operated, bringing you the best to look your best and play your best. Find yourself today at monstermuffin.com.
A little bit of a delay here. Officials just working some things out.
They're probably talking about Monster Muffin.
Maybe. Maybe they were talking about how they're going to find themselves later.
All right.
Yeah.
They're all kind of wearing the same thing right now, and maybe during the after party they want to break out a little bit.
Totally. You know, that baby pink is pretty trying, and actually you can see Monster Muffin right there on your screen. Look at all that color and that sparkle. Got to give a shout out to the 125 viewers out there, 65 of you from Canada and 54 from the US of A. Thank you so much.
There's got to be more than 125. There's got to be some watch parties going on.
Well, yeah.
Right.
We have 125 ISPs logged in.
Okay. But if you're at a viewing party of Quad City Chaos, you should totally send us a tweet to let us know how many people are sitting there.
Yeah, give us an accurate count. We want data, people.
Who's got the biggest? What do you think? What city do you think has the biggest viewing party right now?
Well, I mean, there are probably at least 125 people here at the bunker in Downsview Park, but who are not skating right now.
Yeah, but they're not listening to us.
No.
I want to know.
No, they're listening to some other fools.
So don't forget, tell us how your viewing party is going on Twitter using the hashtag talk2QCC.
So just in case you're wondering what's going on, the Flamingos here, the NSOs, are just cleaning up some paperwork, making sure that scores are what they should be. And right now, CN Power is at 350. That seems to be an update from earlier. And 69 points for Bleeding Heartland. Right now, that's Motorhead Molly jamming for CN Power, having a hard time getting recycled back and forward, pushing her way through, falling, coming back around, just basically playing derby. She's out there alone right now, Bleeding Heartland doing their best to stop her. They're out of pack, and she is lead jammer.
Yeah. Toronto starting this one on a power jam. Bleeding Heartland's jammer still sitting in the penalty box.
And she's in the pack again on the inside. Picks up 5 points. It's a frustrating position, especially spending almost a full 25 minutes so far behind another team. Bleeding Heartland's looking a little defeated here.
Just under 2 minutes remaining in the bout. Bleeding Heartland's jammer, Eddie Muncher, is out of the box.
Motorhead Molly jumping over that last skater foot. Picks up 5 points. Meanwhile, Bleeding Heartland just a toe stop out of the track. Has to get recycled back to the back behind Rennie Rumble.
Eddie Muncher gets recycled one more time.
Both jammers kind of on their own there against both teams. Pack is split. And rejoins. Motorhead Molly again approaching the back of the pack for another point scoring pass.
Eddie Muncher knocked out of bounds to the outside, came back in, knocked out of bounds to the inside.
Motorhead Molly had picked up that 5 points by then.
43 seconds left on the clock. Enough time for at least one more jam in this one.
CN Power with 375 points. Flatliners at 69. Speaking of numbers, 905 is your jammer for CN Power, and number 407 for Bleeding Heartland.
Hurricanes first time wearing the star this bout.
I do love me some blocker jammers, gotta say. And of the two blocker jammers to be toe-to-toe right now, Dinah Hercha blocking that Bleeding Heartland jammer. Oh, knocks her to the ground.
Dinah didn't even back up to recycle her, but
No.
Bleeding Heartland is so used to it that their jammer just took 10 steps back to avoid the cut.
Yeah. There's a little bit of joking. I don't know if this is a Toronto thing or if this is a Derby thing, but before every game, you say, we're going to make them play our game. We're going to play our game. And you can actually see CN Power making the other team play exactly the game they want them to. Like you said, she didn't even have to step back. She just mind-willed it to happen.
Yeah, you can really see that this Toronto skaters have gotten into Bleeding Heartland's head. And she calls off the jam. That's the end of this bout. Looking at the scoreboard with the unofficial final, the Flatliners picked up 69, CN Power 384. And more tellingly, the Flatliners only able to pick up 6 points in this half.
6 points in the second half. So even though this bout is over, I definitely encourage you to rewind to the beginning and see how close this was in the first half. This really was a different game in the second half.
And CN Power taking their victory lap around the track. So far, the Canadian teams taking the first two games.
Definitely both rebuilding years coming into this tournament for Bleeding Heartland and Ohio. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out and how the rankings turn out for both of these teams despite these losses.
So anyone who was questioning CN Power after their performance in the playoffs, how would they keep the upswing going? They've kept that momentum.
And despite losing some key players, there are at least 3 huge, players that are on the CN Power roster this season that weren't out on the track today. So it really is an interesting look at what's to come for this team, as well as Team Canada.
So that's it for this one. Don't go anywhere. We have another bout coming up at 2 o'clock this afternoon as Toronto's Bay Street Bruisers play the Ohio Gangrene, the Battle of B teams. And I'm Single Malt Scott McIver.
And I'm Monichrome.
You're watching Canuck Derby TV.
In Toronto at Quad City Chaos 2014. Where are we?